Welcome back to Toni Farmer's Garden, the podcast. Hey, Klein, do you ever find yourself sitting at bed at night eating Cheetos and you feel full, but you can't stop?
Yeah, mine is Doritos, but I also put them away and get in bed, and then 10 minutes later get out of bed and get more.
So Cool Ranch or regular flavor?
Either.
Doesn't matter. All right.
I don't care.
All right. Everyone's relating to this right now. Everyone has had this problem at some point. And guess what? It's not our fault. It's not your fault.
Thank God.
There are teams of researchers and food scientists who are paid virtually around the clock a lot of money to figure out how to get you to keep eating even when you don't want to. And it even has a name for it, Bliss Point. So today I'm talking to one of those people. Mark Hines is the Global Research and Development Director for MAFCO. He's also worked at Campbell Soup to develop their products and is a food science professor at Drexel University. This episode is pretty much for anyone who eats food at all. We uncover the secrets of what's in the food you're probably eating regularly, like pasta sauce, Go-Gurt, Oreos, high fructose corn syrup to make it feel addictive. Ever wonder how Campbell Soup makes their soup taste more like chicken? Want to know why trans fats are banned? Are you sure or not if high fructose corn syrup is actually bad for you? Mark and I are both scientists, so this will not be like listening to an influencer on TikTok. We like to understand the research before we share, so you'll have the real answers to your questions. Let's talk about it. Welcome, Mark Hines. Tell Klein and I why we can't stop eating Doritos, or in my case, Cheetos.
Certainly. Thank you, Toni. Well, let's say Doritos.
Okay.
I prefer Doritos, particularly Cool Ranch.
Yes.
There's been a whole army of scientists, flavor people, that actually try to optimize these formulations. So there's a great combination of salt, probably MSG, onion powder, garlic powder, and other flavorings that just simply make it so good.
So, but not just salt, MSG, garlic powder, right? It is the perfect combination drilled down. So explain what that looks like.
Okay, well, we'll talk about the Bliss Point.
Yes,
which is designed by Howard Moskowitz.
It overrides the brain's ability to follow the cues or send the cues. I'm full and I'm ready to stop, correct?
I think so, yes. And it's really a scientific exploration of trying to determine all the variables in a food product for the flavor and how it optimizes the flavor point. The point where the food is so perfect on the taste, you just cannot taste enough of it. You just keep repeating it. And so Doritos would be a good example.
So it's addictive. How accurate is that to say?
It's addictive can be a clinical term, obviously, but yes, it just, you cannot say no. So there's a few foods myself I just cannot eat enough of, maybe because they're not that filling. Mm-hmm. Cool Ranch Doritos would be one of them. Caramel corn is another one for me. I could just eat that and just eat it.
And you feel full to the point where you almost feel sick and your teeth hurt. And Klein and I were talking earlier, like sometimes you put the package away and 15 minutes later you go get it back out.
Oh, you do. Yeah, you do. You put it away and you say, oh my gosh, that was so good. I'm still getting a little bit of that linger in my tongue, which is really in the brain. You want to go back and have more. Just another handful and another handful. So some food scientists have been very good at doing this. Obviously, there's a whole army of people behind them.
I know you do this for a living, so a company will bring you a food, or if you're in-house at, say, Frito-Lay or wherever, they bring you the product and they say, we want to sell a lot of this, right? That's their goal. What do you do with it? What do you do with that product when it gets in your hands?
We get a lot of different products. My job today, we tend to more fix flavor problems. Things are very bitter. They're not sweet enough, things like that. So we adjust that. It can be relatively one-dimensional, just not sweet enough. So we can work on that. Often it's too bitter.
But they want you to make it sweeter without adding more sugar, correct?
Correct.
So that's the trick.
Right.
Okay, but let's go back, let's stick with Doritos for a little bit. They're food scientists, they had a product that was the original version of Doritos. They wanted to do a line extension, which is very profitable because you don't have to recreate the wheel. You just take the original
existing equipment for the most part, and you just add another flavor.
And what would someone like Howard Moskowitz do with that original Dorito flavor to next level it?
Well, it's complicated. And so in the book, Salt, Sugar, Fat, explains that process. But it's actually just mapping out a number of variables until you get to the point where it's essentially addictive. We'll just use that term. Okay. And it's not really a point per se. It's going to be a range. Mm-hmm. I think it's even pointed out in the book, Salt, Sugar, Fat. that it's a range where you have the ideal flavor combination for most people, to the point where they just can't stop tasting it enough. So I do think it tends to be focused on beverages, on snacks, things that maybe we don't really need to eat a lot of, but it just keeps having you go back and back to that. So I think part of the thesis of the book is there's three main ingredients that you can use. That would be salt, sugar, and fat. And the ideal combination can make foods irresistible. I think one of the best examples is probably Oreos.
I'll say more about Oreos. Because the rest of the world doesn't understand our fascination with Oreos.
Yeah. It is a little strange.
It's an American obsession.
It's an American thing. There's not a lot of real food ingredients in there. There's wheat flour.
And they're vegan, correct?
They are vegan.
Which is such a
I had a daughter still have a daughter, but daughter was vegan for a number of years, and she ate a lot of Oreos because that was a snack she could do. But it really, to me, is the ideal combination of sugar and fat with some salt. Mm-hmm. If you had no salt in there, it would not taste as good because it accentuates particularly the cocoa.
Yeah.
But it's just really that perfect thing where the sugar obviously gives the sweetness kick, but the fat delivers that.
And what is the serving size of Oreos?
I wouldn't know, but it's probably 1 or 2 ounces.
Can you look that up? I think it might be 2 or 3 Oreos.
I'm sure it is.
And how many does the average person eat in a sitting? I think a sleeve is fair to say.
We have some of those at work. The little packs, there's only 2 Oreos, so you can do that. But there's several. There's several packs, yes. That's true. I think it is a behavior.
3 cookies.
3 cookies.
3 cookies, okay.
How many of you listening to this, when you eat Oreos, only eat 3 Oreos?
Yeah.
That would be interesting.
Well, you know the behavior is you open a back package of Oreos, and you may just want to say 2 or 3 serving size, and no, suddenly you realize the whole sleeve's gone.
Yeah.
And maybe you'll stop at that point. But there's something I can just continue to eat and eat.
It's critical to note the combination is important because we all know we like salt and we like sugar and we like fat. But we will get exhausted with those flavors individually pretty quickly, actually, from what I understand. So if you eat something very, very salty, your taste buds get exalted very quickly, or something too sweet. But when they're perfectly combined together, magic happens, right?
That's right. So that's where food scientists and the flavor scientists, sensory people, pursuing that so-called bliss point, that's where they come in. And so my experience at Campbell's Soup, which is generally very healthy foods, maybe a little high in sodium, but otherwise we'd work to have a combination that would match what we think the consumers are going to expect. And then we'd have a lot of resources of sensory that would go out to the field, central location tests, and test various scenarios. We'd do some internal work as well to determine the right amount of a particular flavor. So let's just say it's chicken flavor, because a lot of soups are chicken related, obviously. Maybe it's a roasted chicken, and trying to determine what's the level that's going to be the consumer driver. It could be overdone quickly.
So let's define our terms here, because we know these subjects well, but my listeners may not. So when you say you got to test, you're literally having panels of people, and they're often paid a fee, right, to come in. Sure. Very often college students, right, because they're poor and they eat a lot of food, and they'll come in, and you'll test iteration after iteration after iteration, just adjusting. Describe that process.
That's right. So we do have to do a little bit of homework ahead of time before we go into testing with consumers, because it's very expensive. But some of my experience has been that we test exhaustively in the facility, R&D facility, mostly just R&D people, obviously some brand people, things like that. And we would have some sensory panels that would be trained people that could just determine, is it on a scale, is it salty? Where's that on a scale, saltiness? But more likely we'd have exploring more things like tomato flavor, chicken flavor, trying to scale that, because we get a little too attuned to it. And
how would you make something taste more like chicken than it already does?
Chicken flavors. But not just chicken flavors. There's a whole wealth of
artificial chicken flavors? Or
they're natural. They're natural. At least at Campbell's Soup, it would be all natural.
Okay.
And but there's many more tools to make that more effective. And one of the most impressive tools for making something taste more like chicken is MSG, monosodium glutamate. There's been a lot of concerns over the years, but I think more so maybe 30 to 40 years ago about the Chinese restaurant syndrome.
I remember.
I think it's been largely disputed and disregarded.
It's just another additive, correct?
Right. But that's a tool. It makes chicken actually pop a lot. It really does, or any savory flavor, but particularly in chicken. We would go through some trials, just training exercises. Would we taste a chicken broth with and without MSG, and the difference was day and night.
And it's safe in small amounts, of course, correct?
It is.
Yeah.
I think the evidence is.
There's a lot of other things you're probably consuming that are far more dangerous to you than MSG.
So I recall the study. I mean, this has been a long time now, probably 50 years ago. The study that, first of all, brought into question MSG as being safe for you, giving you headaches and stuff. I think that was actually pretty much disputed as faulty science. Okay. And I don't think there's been any evidence since then about that. I think it still has a perception it's not particularly good for you.
Yeah.
But so as a food scientist creating a next soup flavor, you would do various combinations of that, salt, obviously, MSG, even potassium chloride to try to reduce the sodium, but you can only put that to a certain level before it starts tasting bad, starts tasting metallic. Flavoring, spices. I mean, that's part of the challenge, and sometimes we didn't employ the spices as well as maybe we could. Because people do like spices, but it can be very polarizing quickly, too.
Interesting. Like if culturally it could be, or if you have a genetic predisposition not to like cilantro, then that whole line of product is not for you, and you lose those customers, correct?
Right. Safer ones would be black pepper. Yeah. Onion powder, garlic powder. So these kind of combinations are often the quick ones. So anyway, we would probably have several months of creating a soup formulation, mostly internally worked on. And then we would go to central location tests. And that would be typically like a fire hall where the company would bring in people.
Like a real fire hall? Like where there's fire trucks?
Anywhere. It could be just a location where you can bring in people and rent.
Okay.
Community house of some sort, library.
Fascinating.
And they would recruit people, typically was housewives, were available during the day or retired.
Well, but we're also the primary shoppers back then.
Well, that was it. We had to make sure that it was a relevant consumer.
Yeah.
So it probably ruled out people that were in their 70s or 80s because they would not be considered the relevant consumer in most cases.
And probably ruled out a lot of men working full-time jobs because some of them had never been inside a grocery store before.
That's right. That's true. And so I participated in a few of these. Most of them were in the area, in the Philadelphia area, because of convenience of costs as well. But we would just usually present maybe somewhere between, as I recall, 6 to 8 different prototypes and have them evaluated with a very extensive questionnaire. And usually from that, we'd come up with our best 2 or 3 options. And I remember one case where we're coming up with a variation on cream of mushroom soup, and we were trying to determine the right sodium level. We're always constantly mindful of trying to manage the sodium level, but we kept having people say it just doesn't have enough.
And why were you trying to manage the sodium level? Tie that to our
consumer perception. Well, sodium is an issue.
Yes,
to me, it's one of my top 2 or 3 things.
Cardiovascular, correct? Yeah.
It's correct. We'll get on that maybe a little later, but we have too much sodium in our diets as a generality. And I think it really does affect health.
And this is why, because it makes things taste good.
It does, absolutely. I often say to food scientists, and I say this very much facetiously, if you need to solve anything, it's a sweet product, add more sugar. But it often gives the response that people want. Now, obviously, you need to challenge yourself and actually work a little harder on that.
Interesting.
If you were under the gun, metaphorically, and needed to solve something, a sweet product, let's say a filling, and it wasn't quite driving the consumer satisfaction, in most cases, a little bit more sugar dials it in, maybe just a tiny bit more, 2%, 5% more.
So on that note, and we may jump around here, but there's a study and some videos I looked at a little while ago, and I haven't done a deep dive on it, but a study of sugar versus cocaine in mice. Are you familiar with that?
I am, yes.
Share that with us, because that was shocking to me.
Well, you'll have to give me some details on that. I'm familiar with it as far as I've read it, but...
my memory is, and if this isn't accurate, we'll cut this, but my memory is that they were making cocaine or sugar available to mice in certain settings, and lab settings are very, very dialed down and accurate. Right. And the mice had a harder time giving up the sugar than they did the cocaine.
I can imagine.
And that feels like that rings true to you on some level. Wow.
It does, yeah.
So I just want to say to my mamas out there right now, when you're fighting so hard, and to trying to keep your kids from just consuming so much sugar, and you start to take that on yourself. What am I doing wrong? What's wrong with my kids? It's not you. We were built to go after those calories. We've evolved as human beings to desire sugar more than cocaine.
We do. It's very pleasant tasting. And we've had the experience as well feeding our children when they're young, like toddlers up to probably middle school age, very sugary yogurt products.
Yes. Let's talk about that. Well, let's go back to Moskowitz.
Okay.
And talk about anything else you want to share that he did that revolutionized the way we consume food.
Right. Well, Howard Moskowitz is a fascinating person. He worked on a number of products, and I think it was Cherry Vanilla Dr. Pepper is one of his successes, where it was kind of reviving a dying brand and created a product that was very satisfying, and apparently was very successful for the company. He worked on Prego spaghetti sauce. I think that was one of his first earlier food industry successes.
So can I share that really fast? So they had on the market, we had spicy tomato sauce pureed, and we had regular tomato sauce pureed. There was no such thing as chunky spaghetti sauce. And they did all this market research, and it showed 30% of consumers wanted a chunky tomato sauce. Howard was the one that did that research. And Prego, and they were like, what do you mean we're missing 30% of our customers? They went back to the drawing board. They created a chunky style tomato sauce, and the rest is history. So that was, if you like chunky style tomato sauce, you have Howard and I guess Prego to thank for that revelation.
Yeah, I think so. What's interesting on that too, and I don't think it's stated as well, is not only the chunky, but probably the addition of sugar.
Oh, it has so much sugar in it. And if you ever make homemade tomato sauce and compare, if you have an Italian Nonna and she made really good sauce, and then you eat Prego next to it, or not, I won't pick on Prego, but commercially available tomato sauce, you will taste a huge difference in the sugar content.
And that was part of the conundrum for Campbell's Soup when they created Prego, is we're in South New Jersey and Philadelphia area, and so you really, anybody probably has connections to Italian people, Italian heritage, or they're Italian. So we have a different definition in all of the United States as far as what spaghetti sauce is. So I think originally they were probably challenged to create a really authentic tomato sauce as a processed food that you could buy in a jar. Mm-hmm. But I think the consumer research clearly was saying that a little bit more sweet was going to be more satisfactory, the so-called bliss point. Mm-hmm. So I think that also was part of the issue as well. And I think as tastes have probably evolved over the last 4 decades or more. People don't really want as much sugar in their spaghetti sauce. Many consumers don't anyway. They start getting more exposed to real authentic Italian type cooking.
And those kind of spices.
Tomato
and basil.
And herbs can be very polarizing. It's challenging again. Like you mentioned, cilantro. I love cilantro. Not everybody does.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's genetic, correct?
It is.
Don't blame yourself if you don't like cilantro, not your fault.
Right. So, but I do think as part of the success of Prego to take on all of the United States was that a little bit more sugar made it better. It reduced some of the bitterness. It's just smoother, more rounded taste. Again, sugar as a flavor tool can be very wonderful. And try to imagine eating chocolate without sugar.
You couldn't do it.
You can't.
No, it's incredibly bitter and awful tasting.
That's one of my examples I talk about when we were trying to mask bitterness. That's probably the best bitter masker would be sugar with cocoa. You couldn't consume it otherwise. You couldn't consume straight cocoa powder. But chocolate's kind of a unique product. It's confection. It shouldn't be a part of your daily diet. But it'd be inconceivable without sugar.
We'll talk to parents who are cooking and trying to feed their kids. It's critical. So it's moving it's not quitting overnight and going all natural, all organic, everything. It's moving in the right direction. So you move your kids from pasta with just butter to pasta with Prego, and they eat it because it's got a little sugar in it. And then maybe you move to a brand that's got less sugar, and then maybe you eventually move to a brand to a product. You make your own tomato sauce at home at some point.
That's right.
Baby steps in the right direction to good health.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. I think that we kind of alluded to a little bit earlier about consuming sugar and salt. I think that's a cultural thing. We, as particularly for children, we tend to give them foods that are high in salt and sugar, so they'll eat them. And my experience as a parent who should know better because I'm a food scientist and I've had a number of nutrition courses, I wasn't always aware of that, how much sugar was in products like yogurt.
let's talk about Go-Gurt, because I put this in I was the crunchy, healthy mom making all the good choices. I put thousands of these over the years I raised 4 children in their lunch boxes. Tell me about this product that sold the first year it was launched, $100 million the first year it was launched.
Yes, it's a little bit shocking. I mean, it's definitely a success as far as food marketing. And I think part of it, too, is not just food scientists. Food scientists basically deliver upon what they're asked for. We can be very good at trying to come up that bliss point, but it's the marketing people that want to sell a yogurt for children.
And what made this so successful? Why did we all buy it?
We thought it was healthy.
We did. It was yogurt.
It's very modestly healthy. It's got dairy protein, which children probably don't lack in the first place. Mm-hmm. It's got calcium that children probably don't lack anyway.
And lots of what?
Lots and lots of sugar.
Yeah, I believe it's got the same amount as, go ahead, how much sugar?
One tube has got added sugar of 18 grams for a total of 23.
23 grams of sugar. And I think that's the same amount of 2 servings of marshmallow Lucky Charms or a single Twix bar.
Somewhere in that range, right?
So I was putting the equivalent of a Twix bar in my kids' lunch every day and patting myself on the back. Right. And every mom listening to this right now is like, oh my gosh, I did that too.
They were the healthy snacks where, let's go back to the refrigerator and grab another one.
I really did think I was doing the right thing.
We did too. And I was going back, approaching 30 years with my children now. I thought I wasn't as familiar with yogurt. And for the most part, that was yogurt in the United States, very heavily sugared. It's really evolved in the last 15, 20 years.
Greek yogurt is probably one of the largest market segments of the last decade.
It still can be high in sugar or it can be low in sugar.
Yeah, well, so you buy...
Right, or you buy plain.
Buy plain yogurt.
And add a little bit of honey.
Dress it up at home, yeah.
Right. So, yes, it's a little appalling. I think what's, to me, really kind of bothersome, and I've dealt with this for 40 plus years in the food industry. Everything on this package looks like it's healthy. And you know that, as a consumer and a mother as well. It's listing calcium, it's fat-free. Yes, great. Vitamins A and D.
Vitamins A and D with calcium.
Another type of Go-Gurt that is, I think it's called Simple, and it's free of artificial colors. It's free of high fructose corn syrup, but it has loads of sugar.
And so is it worse for you if you're going to consume 50 grams of sugar today? Does it make a difference to your body, whether it's sugar or high fructose corn? Not really. Okay.
You should not consume a lot of either. There has been some evidence, and I'm sure some people will be very passionate about the high fructose is worse. There's been some epidemiological research that's saying that people that consume a lot of high fructose tend to overconsume. I don't know what there's a real physiological response to that or not. But I think to me it's simple. Just don't consume either of it in much high portions. We're definitely going to consume sugar, and we should. We should enjoy. But we should be modest.
We should make that point right now. Yeah. Listen, I really like Cheetos. I do. I don't eat them very often, but I really enjoy them. And some people love Cool Ranch Doritos, and I like ice cream, and I love French fries. Yeah. It's about proportion, right? You don't give all those beautiful things up, but...
Right. Yeah, it's a good point, too. One of the things we were bad at in the United States, but we're led to this, between the restaurant industry, the food service industry, and even the food industry, packaged goods, is there's serving sizes, and we rarely consume just a serving size.
Right.
Mentioning my children might have one Go-Gurt, but back in the day, 20 years ago, they'd have 3 or 4 more. Yeah. And they'd often leave the wrappers all over the house, too, but that's another issue.
So I would love to comment on, probably people really are not trusting science right now, which is a huge concern to me. But food scientists, unfortunately, and consumer demand work together to sort of create that when it comes to food. So, and I bring up SnackWells. Because some reports came out, and this was the 90s, and said, fat is your enemy. If fat is the devil of all time, and it's what making us all fat, and consumers went, I don't ever want to eat fat again. And I don't even remember who created SnackWells.
Nabisco.
Nabisco created SnackWells. We bought SnackWells products because we bought them like they was going out of style. I can't even imagine the revenue. because they took the fat out.
And they were much more expensive.
And they were much more expensive. And what did they replace the fat with?
Carbohydrates.
Which is also
sugar or sugar analogs, I guess.
And we all got fatter and didn't understand why, because we had cut all the fat out.
Yeah, that's been some of the food industry over the years. So when I really got into the food industry after graduate school, that was the craze. Low fat, everything.
Yeah.
So what was the answer? But basically replace that bulk with carbohydrates, so sugar or starch.
We did learn about the truth about trans fats during that time, which I think was a good education. Right. But if I go back to the trust in science, I think a lot of people, I feel like it almost started in the 90s with that, almost with, I can speak only for women who are around my age, we felt betrayed. We felt like even though it was not scientists telling us to eat these foods without fat, when the industry worked together with them, we got the message that scientists are saying fat is bad and that it's okay to eat these products, even though they're high in sugar, and we felt lied to. And it almost began this trigger decades ago of, and then it remember it was eggs are bad for your cholesterol, and it goes every couple of years a new article comes out and we make one new food the devil. And I think people have just thrown their hands up at this point. So
that's very
how
understandable.
Would you address that?
Yeah, I won't criticize the public because they're not sufficiently scientifically educated, but there's some reality to that.
Well, and don't have time to.
So 30 years ago, we were not influenced by the internet. We had the internet, at least no access to it, common people. But there was a lot of media about things like fat. It's bad for you. But it really became more of a consumer perception. I got to eliminate fat without really understanding the research behind it. And then again, I'm going to criticize the food marketers, but they took it, ran with it. We're going to eliminate fat. We're going to market things that are low fat, no fat, things like that.
It's a give and take, though, right? Because we vote with our dollars. Mm-hmm. And so when they see what we want, they then start to give us what we want. So sometimes they're creating the problem and the solution, and we fall for it. But other times we're saying more, please, and the food marketers are just giving us what we ask for.
That's right. We're kind of complicit in that regard. Yeah. And of course, now with the internet, particularly social media, it gets really out of control. So if an idea goes out there, and if it's exciting enough, sexy enough, people start going crazy with it. And it doesn't always become a scientifically balanced discussion. It's just an anecdotal situation that starts going crazy. We got that today with Make America Healthy Again. There's a little bit of good stuff and a lot of really just misguided science behind that.
Well, so let's talk about MAHA for a second. I have a lot of followers who are part of the Make America Healthy Again movement. They follow RFK, who's our current head of Health and Human Services. And there are many things I do agree with. Our food system is broken in the United States. 70% of what we eat is processed. There's a lot of addictive food out there. Food marketing makes it very hard for I won't even say housewives any longer, but parents of all genders to make good decisions for their children. We've got addictive foods on the market. But I am concerned that the average parent also doesn't know how to read a scientific study.
Right.
And so they rely on influencers or
Absolutely.
people on TikTok who also may not know how to read a scientific study, but they're getting paid for you to click and follow their advice. And it gets very messy and muddy.
That's right. You're right. They get paid for you to click, to follow this influencer. And I imagine there are good influencers and there's probably very bad ones.
Absolutely.
And it's hard to filter that out. But I'm also I have a PhD, so I'm probably a little bit better from a scientific process of managing information. I tend to look at New York Times when they have something about food and look at that article. There's other sources as well. But I think it was just like, I don't know if it was a repeat or a new article, but about 2 weeks ago about, is Greek yogurt healthy?
Yes, they do a whole
And don't ask me about the details, but I just saw that's something that's worth delving into and debating that. And
what was their final thought?
I can't recall, to be honest. I shouldn't have brought that up. But they do have articles like that. I think it was generally generally good. I mean, it's just part you got to be mindful that there could be sugar in there. Just because it's Greek yogurt and it's higher in protein, it could be just as much sugar or not. So
Listen, I saw the headline and didn't read it, so you made it a little further than me. So give yourself some credit.
can't read everything, but that's the source I go to, particularly if it's something of interest. I mean, I've already made the decision. I don't eat a lot of Greek yogurt, but I do some, mostly for protein and satisfying. Can be very, very tasty, satisfying in that regard, as well as just filling you up. But I certainly steer away from the high sugar products. I've made that decision probably 20, 30 years ago to avoid sugar when I don't need it. And of course, I certainly will enjoy a nice dessert, but once a week, not every day.
So that's the difference between whole foods and the beginning of processed food right there. The method I use is anything that's flavored. Mm-hmm. I will look very carefully at it because flavored normally means salt or sugar.
Yeah.
And most of the time, I think it means sugar in my experience, and a lot more of it than you think, because even with Greek yogurt, you can't add a little tiny bit of sugar and taste a difference. It has to be quite a bit to mask that kind of like tangy, pungent taste that can turn people off.
Right.
So anytime I pick up a box, I'm like, if it says flavors added, I'm like, okay, doesn't mean I'm not going to buy it. I just need more information. And we can get into, how to hack maybe in a few minutes, and trans fats, where do you land on? Like, I think they're actually banned now. Is that accurate?
They are banned, yeah.
And we went for a long time where we wouldn't eat butter. We all ate margarine, and we were convinced we were doing something amazing for our health.
Right.
And what?
Well, trans fats is actually chemically modified to make it more stiff at a higher melting temperature. And those have been banned.
Why?
Why? Because there's substantial evidence they're not healthy.
How?
Because they clog up the arteries. It's simplest answer.
Right. Well,
it's not going to be a cardiologist's response, but yes, it clogs up the artery.
More than butter.
More than butter. Butter still has a little bit of unsaturated fats in there. But again, you don't eat pounds of butter. I hope not. I eat it sparingly when I do butter.
But when I want that butter flavor, I didn't even realize how much I missed it because, again, we all stopped eating butter. Uh-huh. I also want to say that was the 90s.
It was.
Boy, the 90s was a wild ride for food. But we stopped eating butter. We all switched to margarine and all these products. When I finally tasted butter for the first time again, I was like, oh,
where have you been?
Where have you been? And now I do. I used a tablespoon of butter last night. I was making some wonderful cooked beans, and I didn't have any guilt at all. I threw the butter in there, and I enjoyed the flavor of it.
Yeah, but I imagine you're modest with it. You're not having scoopfuls. You're having a small amount. That's okay.
No, it takes me a very long time to go through a stick of butter.
Yeah, I know.
But, olive oil and other oils in other recipes can give you, we haven't talked about mouthfeel. Talk about mouthfeel as a food. And by the way, whenever I lecture undergrads and I say mouthfeel, they giggle like Beavis and Butthead over that. I'm like, it's just calm down, everyone. So what is mouthfeel from a food science perspective?
Well, that's interesting. We could have another episode or two on that because I'm quasi-expert on mouthfeel.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a quasi-expert on mouthfeel. Are you ready?
I'll just claim it. I'm an expert, even though...
what does it mean?
So mouthfeel is probably going to be more of a feeling of fullness. So water has virtually no mouthfeel. If you add some sugar to that, and if you were somehow incapable of tasting the sweetness, a handful of people probably are, you would still feel fuller on the mouth. It would feel particularly on the sides of your cheeks, inside cheeks, and maybe even on the tongue. It's a little bit of residual to that if you swallow it, that you just feel there's something there still remaining. It can be tongue, it can be inside the cheeks.
We have sensors right. all over our mouth and gums and tongue.
Sensory of taste and mouthfeel is extremely complex, and still a lot of it's not known. And it's fascinating to me.
Listeners, think about the difference between drinking a glass of water, then eating a fresh potato chip versus a stale one, versus caramel on a scoop of really good ice cream, versus a greasy cheeseburger. Think about how the inside of your mouth, like the saliva is activated and you want more of it, right?
And you're pointing out, too, that mouthfeel can be different manifestations. So it can be from sugar. Mm-hmm. Sugar gives mouthfeel, and I think that's why a full sugar Coca-Cola will be satisfying to people. In Mexico, and Coke even more.
And it is. Sometimes a cold Coke hits the spot.
It's mouthfeel. And the beverage companies actually had a lot of effort 20 years ago to understand mouthfeel, what it is, and how we can solve it when they really started relying on diet. I'm talking in the context of sugar, but fat, which you were alluding to, is also very important. A different type of mouthfeel, but it's a coating. And you're right. So that greasiness of a hamburger, the potato chip, and fat is a miraculous ingredient. It's talked about extensively in the book, Salt, Sugar, Fat, because it's not a flavor in itself, but it delivers flavors and it gives you mouthfeel, gives a satisfying feel to particularly meats. I think if it's really dry, very lean meat, you don't have mouthfeel the same way. So I think psychologically it's not as satisfying. I don't have science behind that, but I think most people would agree. But when we're going to products that are less sugar or no sugar, products with less fat, mouthfeel is often a problem to solve. Mouthfeel is also delivered by pectin and other natural ingredients in plant products, and I've worked extensively with that because I worked for a number of years in what I call the hydrocolloid industry, but really it's gums and stabilizers. So,
and that's exploding right now, correct? Like everyone's trying to put everything into a gummy bear.
That's right, to make it gel.
And it used to be gelatin, which is a byproduct of the meat industry,
That's
right?
right, yeah.
So when you cook a chicken or something and you take it out of the fridge the next day, there's like gelatin in the bottom of the pan. That's what they used to make Jell-O and gummy bears and everything out of. But now we use fruit pectin.
Still do. Yeah, oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Matter of fact, I think it's a consumer preference in Europe, particularly in Germany, for gelatin gummies. To me, they're just way too chewy and rubbery. Huh. Pectin to me is much more satisfying, but that's just a consumer preference. And it's also can be a geographic preference as well.
And they carry quite a bit of sugar load, correct?
Well, you have to for the pectin.
Right.
Most pectins require I think 55 to 65% sugar to gel. Oh. I used to know this exactly.
Yeah.
But pectin naturally that's in fruit, and that helps deliver the mouthfeel. So you think of a juicy peach, part of that mouthfeel is not just the natural sugar, but the pectin as well. Tomatoes loaded in pectin, things like that. And it helps a little bit in the flavor delivery as well, the pectin does.
So moms and dads, I don't care what product you are buying in gummy form. If it says it's healthy fruit snacks made with all natural fruit juices, it's still just a sugar delivery system.
It's just sugar. It's just fruit juice. It's basically been derived to nothing more than sugar.
Yeah, and that's okay as a treat. But don't ever feed that to your kids thinking you're feeding them healthy.
It's another thing that's perceived as healthy, and it's not at all. And I think, again, that's where I fault the marketers. They want to pursue it as a healthy alternative. It's not. It's sugar.
So the marketers, let's talk for a second about that. Because we've made them sound very evil.
We are.
But this is, and I worked in pharmaceuticals for a long time, so I know what it feels like to be called evil all the time, when the reality is, it's a lot of people that got out of college and got jobs and worked their way up, and they're in marketing, and there is someone breathing down their neck to say we have to increase sales by 3% to make our shareholders and stockholders happy, and you have to figure out how to do that. And you're just doing your job.
They're doing their job.
And at some point, it does get dicey. Like I think in one of the articles I read, the man who created, I hate to even say this word, Lunchables. He's paying penance now. I think he's retired and only does volunteer work. And he won't actually come out and say, he feels like
Bob Drain.
He contributed to the downfall of human health. But you can cross over if you're not paying attention, right, to doing something that feels very unethical.
Right. That's an interesting discussion in the book, Salt, Sugar, Fat, about Bob Drain, who created them as a really a brand manager, employing food scientists, and even his daughter, Monica, who apparently has never eaten a Lunchable.
She's never had a Lunchable. No. It's like tech bros whose kids don't have cell phones because they know how dangerous they are. Well,
that's part of it. I mean, we all want to be employed and get a good living. It can be seductive that you continue to make more money, be successful at what you do. But at some point, there might be a little bit of a soul check about, I'm just selling a lot of sugar to people. And is that where I want to employ my talents? But at Campbell's Soup, again, Campbell's generally has very healthy foods.
Yeah, I'm a fan.
But hired the best and the brightest out of the best business schools to be brand managers, and it was motivating to sell as much as they could. And it happens in all food companies.
It does. And side note, this is not the subject of this podcast, but they're doing some great work with regenerative agriculture. So that makes me very happy because I don't think that the government is going to continue to fund regenerative agriculture, but food companies are because they want to firm up their supply chains. They want to make sure they continue to have really good ingredients in their supply chains. And so that has been a fascinating turn of events, watching Campbell's and General Mills and companies like that start to fund regenerative agriculture. So that's been very cool. I just want to thank you for being here today. I could talk to you for hours. I think we're going to have you back. I'd love to talk more about the psychology behind how we buy and why we buy foods. So interesting. And I think we're going to have a lot of questions after people hear you speak. So.
Well, good. Well, I appreciate it. Enjoyed it very much. Time has gone very quickly.
Where to start? Did it make you mad?
Surprisingly, no.
Huh.
Which is, well, so here's the thing. I'm already a huge cynic in pretty much everything.
Okay.
Do you remember when that sugar documentary came out?
Mm-hmm.
And they talked about the whole, like, it's not non-fat, it's just more sugar?
Yes.
I think that might have been one of the first things that it was like, oh, the world is not what I thought it was.
Yeah.
And I don't trust anything anymore. And,
This is one of the reasons why people don't trust science right now. It really is. So here's what happens. You have a scientist, a group of scientists, a community of well-intentioned scientists doing research on dietary health, and they come up with a realization. Like they realize that, egg yolks are really high in saturated fat and raise your cholesterol. And they release a study. The media really needs clickbait. They do. And I'm not saying the media is all wrong here, but someone has to pay the bills. And someone finds this and goes, this is an interesting story. And they make it the second or third story on the evening news. And then everyone freaks out and stops buying eggs. And it takes a long time for the scientists to get through to anyone and say, hey, we didn't mean you needed to stop eating eggs. We just meant we've discovered a link between cholesterol and we have more to learn. Yes. No one is paying attention to that.
That is my question.
Yes.
I remember now. Because you talk about reading scientific studies, which I have tried to do because when I would do research for stories, I would have to fact check things.
Sure.
And so I would have to find these studies and try to figure it out. And even I, who I pride myself in being able to research things, that's part of my job, have trouble sometimes. And a lot of times I feel which might be exactly what you were just talking about, it's what I'm reading is inconclusive.
All the time.
But the story that we got this story
all
from,
the time.
They're but they're saying something that I'm looking at the study and I'm like, no.
They found a soundbite.
Yeah.
But
it's not a true sound.
No, and most of the time soundbites are often, there's always context, right? And then science moves on and they discover something new.
Yeah.
And that doesn't always get picked up because finding out that eggs don't actually make you die of high cholesterol is not a great story for the evening news. And then people blame the scientists, you lied to us. And the scientists are if you read scientific studies, I say two things are true. One is almost every scientific study I read ends with this statement. More research is required. Yes. We have not come to a fundamental new decision. Yes. And then the next scientist takes that research. Every single scientist stands on the shoulders of everyone who came before us. So that's one. Yes. Two is I am fairly convinced you should not be reading any studies and interpreting them if you haven't had stats 1 and 2. Statistics
really?
1, absolutely.
What if you had stats 1 and 2 in senior year of high school?
If you remember enough of it to understand what error and p-value is.
I remember p-value.
What's p-value, Klein?
I don't know what it is, but I remember
okay, so remembering what it is matters.
I remember hating stats.
Oh, that's a shame.
I'm just sitting there and being I don't get this. Isn't p-value no.
P-value is the measure of the error in the research. So it's really important.
If it's high,
yes.
Then it's
yes, and researchers will report that and they will, right? So
and you're supposed to look at that and take the study and through that lens?
Researchers will talk about the acceptable level of error.
Yes.
And then other researchers will decide if they accept your version of what the acceptable level is. We all have different levels of error acceptable with different data. And then you also have to ask the question, was it statistically significant at the end? So you may survey 100 people and you see 10 of them had an allergic reaction to XYZ product. But if that's not actually statistically significant, it doesn't matter. You have to throw the whole thing out.
What would make it not statistically significant?
What if there was a confounding element, like they didn't screen all the applicants for allergy to that additive?
Yeah.
Right? So of course they were going to show.
So is that something that another scientist would bring up?
Yes.
Okay.
That's what we call peer-reviewed.
Yes.
So you have a bunch of colleagues look at it.
Which is that I feel like I've heard recently about a lot of studies coming out that aren't peer-reviewed yet.
Sure.
And people are running with, well, there's a scientific study, and it's like, well, no, there's not. There's the beginning of a scientific study.
I would 100% rather read a peer-reviewed study than one that had been published. And there are many, many excellent pieces of research that have not been published, right, for many reasons. And then, it's a lot.
That is a lot, but okay.
There's a lot of things we need to accept, too, like everything has been studied on mice. Yes. And we don't like animal cruelty, but mice are very good predictors of how something will behave in... Actually, let's stop here because we should rediscuss this for the pesticide podcast that we're about to do.
Got it.
Because that is very relevant.
Great.
Okay.
Can't wait.
Hey, thanks, Mark Hines, for helping us understand a little bit about all the packaged foods, how they get the flavor that they get, and how we're kind of being, sometimes tricked into eating food that we don't want to eat, or more of it at least. And I hope this helped all of you make better decisions at the grocery store. So we're all right now thinking about all the hidden additives and ingredients and preservatives, but there's something else lurking in your food supply we all know about, but we need to have a real conversation about pesticides. How dangerous are they actually in your food supply? What do we need to worry about and what not? And why maybe the produce section isn't the area of the grocery store you should be worried about. So tune in and listen to the next podcast where we talk with someone who did her dissertation at Tufts on pesticides.